Good afternoon and welcome to Untangling ISP Payments with sonarPay Canada. I'm really excited to talk to you today and bring to you the exciting news that sonarPay is now available to you as merchants in Canada. I'm Stephen McNeil and I'm the Senior Program Director here at Sonar. I've had the luxury over my many years at Sonar in working with most of you on a frontline basis, which gives me the unique opportunity to have understood your challenges, your successes, and where you're going as merchants in this ever-changing landscape. What I'd like to do today is give you a sense of what that changing landscape is and how that change impacts you on a daily basis. And then really, how does sonarPay help you mitigate any change or risk and brings additional value to you as merchants? So if that's okay, I'd like to move on to the next slide and get into some of the challenges. So this changing landscape really is dialed into some common pain points, some industry changes, and some Canadian-specific requirements. And some of those common points are the opacity, understanding where your fees are coming from, and in the changing landscape where ISPs are merging for various reasons, the increased complexity about understanding that same fee structure across many company entities. The pain point of trying to reconcile through manual spreadsheets, a little bit of math magic between the processor and the sonarPay subscriber. These things are very time consuming, and we're going to look to see how that can be mitigated with sonarPay Canada. We see that the changing requirements for protection of privacy and data transparency are impacting more and more merchants. And we really have to be able to address that too. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the Canadian specific, the FCAC requires various Canada specific, obviously, requirements, dispute handling dashboards for software related issues, exactly fee breakdown so that you understand precisely what you're paying, where your fees are originating from. And then providing you with a monthly merchant processing statement. This is very important because most processors that primarily focus in the US do not take the Canadian market serious, but we do. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's look at how sonarPay Canada helps to address some of that changing landscape and even provide additional value. So some of the things we're going to look at here are time to revenue, reconciliation, the ease of a one pane of glass user interface. And of course, what's really important, the reporting aspects, providing you optics into your business. I mean, after all, if you're not collecting revenue and you're not understanding where it's coming from, how do you grow as a merchant? So let's talk about getting paid faster. The beauty of this solution is nothing changes to you or your staff. Right? Processing, collecting money is done in the same way that it always has been. What's different is all the work in the back end that is being executed through this embedded solution. Also, your customers don't have to change how they're behaving with you. They simply interact with the customer portal or however you've asked them to interact. Nothing changes. So even in the context of getting a better solution with sonarPay and more tightly integrated solution, from a workflow perspective, nothing changes in how you collect payments. Now, let's move on to the next one, easier reconciliation. So my understanding from talking to most of you is that you're constantly under the challenge of trying to reconcile what a merchant says what a processor says they've deposited, settled, dispersed into your operating account versus what you say your subscribers paid, and trying to understand, first of all, not only what fees are they paying, but what accounts do those fees and revenues belong to, right? So there's sort of that math magic going on behind the scenes that sometimes takes your staff quite a few hours, if not days, each month to figure out that month-end closing. So no longer with sonarPay, you're able to reconcile gross sales, fees, chargebacks, returns, refunds, right down to the net settled amount in 5 decimal points per account ID, per account user. That is huge. That is what saves a lot of time for your staff, right? So when you think about that and think, okay, I'm going to now be able to save myself 3, 4, 8 hours, whatever the time may be, depending on the complexity and workload that you have for your staff. How do I take that and use it to my benefit as a merchant, repurpose, and get more value out of my own employees? Right? Collecting money should just be automatic. You should not have to worry about how am I getting my money into my bank, and you should be more focused on the customer experience and how to increase the value that you're delivering. And that's what we do through that easier reconciliation process. We free up time and resource. Now, how do we do that? How is that done? Well, we do that through our single pane of glass, our one interface, not only where you continue to take payments as you normally would, continue to add credit cards as you normally would, but being able to have the optics into your business, as we discussed, in a single pane of glass. So what does that mean? It means you don't have to bounce from Sonar to a third-party processor portal, download reports in the processor, try and map it and match it to the data in Sonar. All that is done in sonarPay solution. And we'll review some of that when we do the reporting, because I think that's very important. And so that really touches in on the reporting aspect. That's next, right? Is being able to quickly and easily find out what an account or what a disbursement into your account was made up of at the account level transactions, along with all the various aspects that I talked about: gross fees or gross sales, fees, chargebacks and returns and refunds, and any other type of rollover event that occurs per account level. Right? All that's available to export as per the fabulous sonarPay reporting capabilities that you already know and understand. And so we've just made it that much better with giving you the exact data you need. Being able to access your monthly merchant statement is also very important, because that, as I discussed, is one of the Canadian laws or regulations that's been instituted. So let's go into the next slide. All right, so let's take a look at Sonar. I'm going to share my screen and show you an environment. There we go. All right, so I want to key in on probably 2 separate areas within the reporting, because I think they're both important and they both have value. When we think about you as an executive, or your billing manager, or your accounts receivable manager, if they're different, and also your payables manager, trying to understand what did we get in our bank account today from sonarPay? And what does Sonar say they sent to us, right? Just that daily sort of reconciliation between Sonar software, sonarPay Canada, and your operating account where you're receiving disbursements. First part I want to go to is under the left-hand side, the modules, Sonar billing. When you enroll in sonarPay, and we'll talk about that process in a moment, but when you enroll in sonarPay and we seat your merchant ID in the Sonar instance, you will now have a little hyperlink called sonarPay. And when we click on that hyperlink, or when you click on that hyperlink, you'll see your daily settlement activity here. So this is really that sort of, what did I get in my bank and what did sonarPay say I should get in my bank? So it gives you that very high level batch information that you probably already get, but you probably had to go to a third-party portal to receive it. That's all now here within your sonarPay. And if you think about these payment IDs or these disbursements for a moment and this sort of view, I'm now going to pivot to the sonarPay reporting module, and I'm going to key in on one specific report for the purposes of this webinar, and that is when I scroll down all the way to the financials, you probably have noticed these tiles in your instance, sonarPay monthly statement and sonarPay disbursements, but now they'll have data in them, right? So before, if you open them, they would just be blank and say, please contact Sonar for more information. But if I click on the sonarPay disbursements tab, module, and I let this report paint or render, the top part of this report is really a tabular view of that dashboard we just looked at. So if you think about every line here being a single batch disbursement that was settled into your bank account, it now breaks that batch, which had very limited information that you saw previously, just the top line amount that was deposited in your bank. At least now you see, okay, what were my gross sales for that batch? And then what were my refunds, chargebacks, fees, any rollover, which is generally, percents of a cent. When you think about 5 decimal places, eventually when you reconcile, there are fractions of 1 penny that roll over. And that's what a rollover is. And we get into that more when you enroll and we explain things a little better or a little more detailed. And then, of course, what was settled, and we call it the net settled amount. What was deposited, real cash into my bank for those transactions. Now, the secret sauce, forgive me for that I'll rephrase that all merchants claim to save them these valuable hours in resource time is the table that is below this. So if you see there in the top table, ID 13246, and I scroll down, I can filter on each individual disbursement ID, but that second table, you'll see multiple lines with 13246. Those are the individual transactions that go into that disbursement. Think about it. The opacity, an understanding of what the breakdown is on a disbursement that's, popped into your bank every day. This is where you will see the account ID, the account name, all the aspects of the individual transactions. And then also the same reporting, the gross sales, the refunds, chargebacks, or disputes, as well as the net settled amount per account per transaction. Think about it. That makes your billing managers very excited because they will tell you, and if it's not you, they will tell you that they pull their hair out every month at month-end closing to try and do this function, which now sonarPay Canada has made just another task that you can easily complete quite quickly. Also, during the transition, what I mean by transition is processing payments through your existing or legacy platform processor, as well as sonarPay, because that happens. We'll talk about that during the process, and I'll talk about that after this reporting overview. You want to understand, well, what am I processing through that legacy processor versus what am I processing through sonarPay Canada? So I'm going to go back here to the reporting module, and a tile that you're all familiar with, the payments tile, now will give you the ability to toggle on the two processors or three, whichever processors you had as legacy processors, and filter that view to see exactly what is going through an individual processor during that filter time period. Exceptionally valuable during the transition process, so that your staff is not having to do additional functions of, okay, let me do a VLOOKUP on sonarPay versus whatever other processor. We made it very easy by just allowing you to pick the appropriate filtered value. And you'll see that down below, there is a graph that shows you exactly what went through sonarPay from a payment perspective. Now, if you had that filter to sonarPay and Moneris, or sonarPay and Bambora, or sonarPay and Authorize, you would see both transaction amounts that are going through the respective processor, and obviously you can click on that and see the transactions that are flowing through each of those. So that's what I think I wanted to highlight from a reporting perspective. Oh, one more thing is, so the other thing we hear about is, how do you handle chargebacks and disputes? And I said, well, how have you been handling them? And a lot of the merchants say, well, we don't know if we are or not, because we don't know really when we get them or not, right? So what Sonar has done, recognizing that challenge, is we've added a dashboard under the billing tools called chargebacks and disputes. Oops, sorry. There we go. Well, if I could work a mouse, we'd be good. All right. So, well, look at this. They don't have any chargebacks. There's no chargebacks here. But this is the dashboard where you would see your chargebacks and disputes. You would see what cycle they're in. You would see, where the chargeback came from and the reason for it. So what account, what exact transaction is in dispute. And then it provides you a link to the payment portal where you would action against that dispute, or accept liability, or fight it and win it. And we've got some exciting developments on how we're going to handle, or how we're going to even facilitate that process for you, utilizing some very state-of-the-art artificial intelligence algorithms to help you complete some of the documentation appropriately, which will then help you win more of those cases or disputes without putting in much effort at all. So stay tuned for that. So those are the sort of components I wanted to give you from a sonarPay single pane of glass, or Sonar proper instance, single pane of glass. Now I want to pivot to the actual payment portal, because with sonarPay, you get a back-end processor environment, which many of you may be accustomed to, especially those using authorize.net or Stripe. IPPay doesn't really have a great, sorry, I shouldn't say that. IPPay, I think, has a portal that they expose you to, but I can't be certain. But what I can be certain of is that sonarPay Canada provides you that processor portal, payment processor portal, and at no charge and no seat cost. Have as many users as you think you need in that environment, understanding that it's a highly financially perspective portal. And so I want to take you into that portal that is hosted entirely by us with no infrastructure requirements for you as a merchant. So I'm going to take you into sonarPay payment portal. And all right, so this is the sonarPay payment portal. So essentially this is the back-end view and access to the processor that's embedded into your Sonar instance, right? Now, why do we have this? One is to action the dispute that we just talked about. You will, when you log in, you will be brought to the disputes page, and this is where you will actually upload evidence against the chargeback. You will accept liability if you choose. So that's one reason why you'll need the payment processor. And this is also where you'll be able to see all your chargebacks at one time and action them while you're there or review them while you're there. So the idea is do everything you want, need in the sonarPay instance, but when you come to the payment portal and you need to, say, upload evidence for one chargeback, while you're in there, you can manage all your chargebacks if that's your workflow. So and it has a beautiful, intuitive interface to do that. And I really like this aspect of the payment portal, how we handle disputes. And because we understand the type of dispute, the nature of the dispute, whether it's a suspected fraud type of dispute, there's a very specific type of evidence that a processor or that an issuing bank or a card network brand, and when I say that, I mean Visa, Amex, MasterCard, Discover, and in Canada specifically, Amex, Visa, MasterCard, right? They have very specific requirements per chargeback type. So we help facilitate that because we know what we're doing with chargebacks, and we need it to be reflected and help you maximize on winning those and returning revenue to your bank or accepting liability because it was a mistake and giving it back to the merchant. Also in this why else might you need this payment portal? This payment portal provides you with different perspectives on the data that most of you don't need, but should you need it, it's available. And what do I mean by that? If you're looking for, so everything that we feel you need is in the sonarPay instance. That's why we have that single pane of glass. So 99% of what you do every day, even greater, is within Sonar. And visiting the sonarPay portal should be a very rare occurrence. But there are times when you might want sort of, some of your team may want different immediate views to reports that can be easily obtained through the portal. So you can see all these different types of reports available in the payment portal. Also, when you want just a very formal processing statement, monthly processing statement like you're used to getting, again, because we bring everything into Sonar, into your Sonar instance, you'll probably be less reliant. I'm actually going to go on a limb and say you will be less reliant on the monthly statement, but by law or Canadian regulations, you are entitled to that, and we have to provide that. So under the sonarPay monthly statements, you have access to every monthly statement for every year that you've been processing through sonarPay. And it's as easy as generating that report whenever you want. It's always available to you. And there you go. You can see these are monthly statements that you're probably used to getting with your other processors. And you probably rely on these heavily to reconcile. But if you notice, the data here never really refers to a specific account where a transaction occurred. And that's where we bring the value in sonarPay in the Sonar instance, because we show you that reconciliation level detail by account. There are other great uses for the portal, and we'll leave those for another discussion because, as you can tell, I like to talk about these things at length because they're exciting. But I want to stop sharing for a second and just go back to the last slide, if that's okay. And I want to talk a little bit about the process. Oh, let's take a couple of questions, and I'll probably get to some of the things I want to talk about. And if not, I'll bring them up as well. Oh, okay. There we go. Ashley, thank you. So there's only so many questions that come up over and over and over again. So I suspect you're going to all hit them. That's why I paused for a second. So what does the enrollment process look like? And I'm going to talk about that as basic as it's a 15-minute process, if that, right? And so we've underwritten our total portfolio. So all of our merchants are already qualified from a financial risk perspective. So you'll never have us saying, prove your liquidity. We'll never ask you for monthly statements that include all your revenue transactions and any disbursement activities. We don't need to do that. And that's a benefit to sonarPay and being a Sonar customer, because you're already approved. So this is really what it's called, an enrollment process. And that's done through a secure online link that'll be attached to the webinar recording when it goes out, that really requires 4 key areas of enrollment information. And that's really, tell us about the business, right? Address, phone number, website, your tax ID or your business registration number, address, simple business information that most everybody knows, with the exception maybe the business registration number, and you have to look up an email or a file just to get that. The next area is really owner information. By owner information, it's really a key stakeholder. So if you think about going to a bank and opening up a corporate account, the enrollment process is looking for that sort of same type of person that will be responsible for the account. So that person's information, so that it can be verified, as in the Know Your Customer regulations and various other FCAC requirements. And then thirdly, the bank account information. Where do you want your money to be settled to or just deposited to? Bank and routing number and transit number. So let me rephrase that. Institution number, transaction number, and account number. And then finally, it's just acknowledging the terms and conditions. So similar to going to a website and says to continue, click this box to accept. These are terms and conditions that apply to all merchants across all MCC industry codes. So it's not there's never an instance where you have to have a negotiation. It's not that type of contract. It's just a terms and conditions. In fact, there are no contracts with sonarPay Canada. And we are so confident in the solution that there is no fee to cancel. There is no term that you're fixed to. There are no committed transaction volume requirements. So really, it's just a checkbox. When you get to that stage, you're given your fee structure. When we talked about fee opacity, so you'll know exactly what you're paying for various types of transactions. and leaving no doubt in your mind. That is the enrollment process, which takes literally 15 minutes. We've had people do it in a matter of 3 minutes because the controller or whomever is enrolling just knows all this information at the back of their hands. It's not complicated. And so that's the initial investment of your time, and that's it. Or your cost to have sonarPay Canada is that 15-minute time investment. And you'll never regret that. That's what I'll say. So once you do have here we go. Will we have to contact, thank you, Eric. All right, great question. Will we have to contact our customers to re-add their credit cards? I tell you, there isn't a merchant, Sonar customer, or outside this industry, anyone that does not ask this question. So let me just first off say, no, you do not have to contact your customers to re-add their credit card or bank account information. As long as they have an existing credit card and or bank account in Sonar, in the Sonar instance, you will receive a sonarPay token or payment method matching those, resulting in no customer contact. Because we know, and I know, having worked with many of you, every time you have to reach out to one of your subscribers is another opportunity for a couple things to happen. Them say they're really not happy and they want to leave, them telling you what you're not doing well and what you can do about it. And sometimes you get the positive feedback. So we're not going to put you in a position where any one of those might happen, because you're just not going to have to call your customers for that information under the circumstances I just talked about. Now, let me just talk a little bit about that process. Why will you not have to contact your customers? So once you enroll in sonarPay and you get an active sonarPay merchant ID, which usually happens literally on the spot or the next day. And so once that happens, we put that merchant ID into your Sonar instance, and our team usually will do that on your behalf, just because we do it all the time and we do it without any errors. So you're always welcome to seat that yourself, but it's an important step. We put the merchant ID in your instance, and what that does right away is it allows for the tokenization of any new payment method added at that point onwards or updated to start immediately transacting through sonarPay Canada. All the time, all your other payments are still going through the legacy processor until the time in which we help you get a what we call a decrypted token extract from your legacy processor. So really, that's all the credit card and bank account information that we can digest and then retokenize to a sonarPay payment method until that's actually switched out into your sonarPay instance. You will be transacting in two different worlds for a period of a few weeks, thereabouts, depending on the legacy processor. Some of them take a little longer to get the information to you than others, but we know how to dial in on that and help you with those requests to make it as short of a window as possible. So that ensures that no payment methods are missed, right? Because you're catching all new payment methods through sonarPay Canada while you're waiting for that token export to come through. So if someone updates a new credit card in their Sonar instance while you're still waiting, or bank account while you're still waiting for that extract, it automatically goes through sonarPay Canada. So we never really miss any payment methods. So that's a great question. Thank you very much for that, Eric. Are there any others? Chris, how long does the transition take? Okay, what happens if we have issues after we're on sonarPay? Oh my gosh, so you guys are good. You're asking all the right questions. So the answer to that is the transition takes literally as long as the slowest or longest pull in the tent, one of my colleagues always says, and that is the time that the legacy processor takes to get us the decrypted token or payment method extract. And like I said, that varies between processor to processor. But what we're in control of only takes a matter of a few days. And that is once we get the payment, the extract, and we tokenize it to sonarPay, it's a complete behind the scenes, but a completely automated backend function where we import or transfer an old token with a new token and transition any autopay features from that same payment method to the new payment method. It happens in real time. There's no what some of you might know as snapshots or downtime. Payments it's a real live time switch. And one of the questions that some people also ask is, well, what happens if someone goes to pay and it hasn't switched quite yet, or is there a chance for us to lose a transaction during that automated process? And the answer is no. At the moment they transact a payment, that exact payment will transaction through the exact processor it's pointing to, right? So even if the script is running, when someone clicks, pay, it will find whichever one's live. And it will transact. So there's not even a chance that a transaction is lost during that process. So that's a great question. Is there any others? I don't think there are. Or I don't think we have time. Oh, Louisa. Can you have multiple sonarPay accounts in a single instance if you are managing multiple companies in Sonar? Again, we talked about one of the challenges out there in the industry where ISPs are finding other ways to grow their business, increase their revenue, their wallet share, whatever their strategy is. So they are acquiring, merging multiple entities into a single Sonar instance. And so sonarPay, and only through sonarPay Canada, are you able to run multi-tenancy processing. So you can literally have as many sonarPay merchant accounts in Sonar, all having different, what we call statement descriptors, what your subscribers would expect to see as a business name on their credit card or bank account statement, saying, hey, this transaction on my bank account says it was coming from ABC company, right? And that's what they're used to, right? So even that aspect is managed with us managed with you very carefully through us to ensure that no changes in that way are which could lead to a dispute filing are happen, right? So we go through great lengths to make sure that all aspects of your multiple merchant accounts are handled. And even so, we talk about the statement descriptor, but what if you have separate bank accounts for each of those entities, right? So company A acquires company B, now it's company AB, but you still have a requirement to have company A's money go into one operating account and company B's money go into company B's operating account, right? Until maybe you consolidate those yourselves. Well, we have one customer, one merchant that has 13 different sonarPay merchant accounts in their Sonar instance. So think about trying to manage 13 separate merchant accounts in a single Sonar instance. No one will do that. I mean, this customer had a different legacy processor that they literally had to have different merchant portals to even look at that data. Never mind seeing it all in one pane of glass in Sonar. That just didn't happen. It wasn't a possibility. But with sonarPay Canada, it's absolutely your right to enjoy that. So great question, Louisa. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm hearing that that's all the questions. Let's try and wrap this up. So we did talk about the enrollment, about 15-minute process. You can either do that in a joint session, which I highly recommend with your a payment specialist here at Sonar, or contact your client relations manager, and they'll help guide you to us to ensure you have some expertise in completing that enrollment. Or you can do it yourself if you're comfortable with the type of information that we reviewed, and being able to enter that online and click submit after you accept the terms and conditions. Then you're very welcome to do that, right? And then if for some reason you have difficulties, you could always reach out to the same amazing support team that's helped you with all your other Sonar software related questions or issues, because our support team is fully payments mobilized and ready to help you. They do a really good job. They're not overly used with payments because it just works, sonarPay Canada. So that's sort of the enrollment, filling out the documentation. The T's and C's are just like I said, it's reviewing a bank disclosure. Funds are settled out of People's Trust in British Columbia for sonarPay Canada. And it just has information, similar about that, how fees are settled, time-wise. So it's T plus 2 days, so transaction to 2 days, which is the Canadian standard. It's some do it weekly. At least we do it as quickly as capable across all processors, and that's 2 days for credit card transactions. You're always getting a settlement every day, but it's the following days, or it's the previous day's settlement that you get on previous 2 days settlement on any given day, right? And then of course, T's and C's, and then after the T's and C's are accepted, you get your merchant account. We already talked about the process there. And then there's about another 5 to 10 minutes where you can take a breath and submit your request to your legacy processor to initiate your token transfer process. That I said might take a few weeks to receive. But that's literally it. So if you look at the actual overall time investment for you as a merchant to receive all the value that you're probably a little tired of hearing me brag about, we're really talking about 20 minutes worth of your time to receive, the non-inconsequential benefits that sonarPay Canada offers. Is there a next slide there? Well, listen, I've enjoyed this. I hope you have too. And if nothing else, I hope it sparked a little bit more than a curiosity that helps, that says, yeah, I got to talk to someone at Sonar. We've been waiting for this. Most of you have. I mean, I've heard from you over the past 2 years. When will it be ready? When will it be ready? Well, it's ready. And we'd love for you to start utilizing it as soon as possible, because it's only going to benefit you and your business and your staff when you do so. I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Look forward for the recording and the email with more information. Thank you all. Have a great day.